Welcome back to my hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Emerald using only single stage Pokémon. In the last episode, we took out our dad with relative ease and explored all of the newly opened up water routes across the western side of the region. After picking up several incredible TMs and our latest encounter in Kecleon, it's time to head north and take on the weather routes. More encounters to come and Winona in our sights. Let's do this. Picking up where we left off, it's time to explore some more routes before we begin our preparations for the next gym. Route 119 is next, and unlike Route 118, this area is enormous. There are a ton of trainers to battle and items to pick up, although most of the items are skippable, I suppose. I really do enjoy both Route 119 and 120. Their themes are great, and the terrain is varied and interesting. The constant rain in certain spots really adds to this, as well as the battles too. The tall grass used to annoy me as a kid because I couldn't run or bike through it. I was very impatient. But nowadays, I appreciate how much it mixes things up a bit from the previous routes, not just in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, but from Gens 1 and 2 as well. Route 119 also contains two of Hoenn's single-stage Pokémon in Tropius and, of course, Castform. One of the biggest reasons why I went with Castform as my starter was so that I wouldn't have to choose between him and Tropius. I wanted to be able to use them both, and this was the best way to do it. With that being said, let's welcome said Tropius to the team. Tropius is another Pokémon that I have not used all that much because on paper he's garbage. But I've also said that about Sableye in the past and was proven wrong when I actually got to use him in practice. So I'm hoping the same thing happens with Tropius. What makes Tropius tough to like is the combination of his horrible defensive typing, his lack of speed, and his terrible offensive stats. And he doesn't even get any interesting coverage options either. So basically everything is just bad or mediocre at best. However, he is very bulky, and while his typing is generally bad defensively, there are a decent amount of matchups in this game that allow him to dodge those weaknesses. And while his speed is terrible, he does get Chlorophyll as an ability, which synergizes nicely with what our Castform is trying to accomplish as well. Man, if this thing got Leech Seed via level up instead of as an egg move, that would have pushed him to the next level for sure. Before I head over to the Weather Institute, I grabbed the citrus berries under the first bridge, and I actually backtracked to Route 118 for a quick pit stop. From Route 118, I head slightly east to the Berry Master's house, where I flat out pillage this poor family's garden and use it to start my own citrus berry farm. Sorry, not sorry. Seriously though, this is always a good little detour to take to stock up on the best held item you can get before the postgame. Now back on Route 119, and it's time to quickly clear out the Weather Institute, which is never much of a challenge. This place is pretty cool, I just wish they did more with it, honestly. Well, this is awkward. I'm just gonna take this. They probably don't want this thing back, right? And after releasing a man-made creation that can control the weather out into the wild, I completely ruined our rival's life and finally made it to the wonderful Four Tree City. This place was every kid's dream. Who didn't want to live in a village full of treehouses? I guess I just have a soft spot for towns that heavily integrate themselves into their natural surroundings. I take a quick stroll through town and head out the other side to grab the Devon Scope from Steven. Yep, that's my legendary battle style you've been so curious about this whole time. Thought about how my team is currently constructed, and I was originally going to explore the other routes before I took on Winona. However, looking at the few encounters I could get, they aren't really going to be all that useful for this particular gym. So with the Devon Scope now in hand, I begin my preparations for Winona and her flying types. I'll meet you guys over there for the team review. All trained up and ready for Winona. Overall, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. I think the lineup I've got here is solid. To start the fight, I'm going with Castform. Ice Beam will probably be the only button I press, and Castform will be using it to take out Winona's Swablu and then potentially Altaria and or Tropius. I do have plenty of options though, so it really depends on who Winona wants to send out as her second Pokemon. Next up is Kecleon, and as you can see, I have turned him into a special attacker to take advantage of all that coverage and his quiet nature. This might be the first time I've had 2 Ice Beam users on the team for Winona, so you can imagine why I'm pretty happy with our chances going into this fight. Just like Castform, chances are I'll be hitting that Ice Beam button and nothing else. And again, depending on when Winona sends in Altaria, Kecleon will be available to take it out if Castform cannot. Solrock comes in as our ultimate contingency plan for Altaria. If something goes horribly wrong and I cannot use Castform or Kecleon, Solrock is very well equipped to deal with Winona's ace, having a very favorable defensive typing against all of Altaria's attacks. Our 4th team member is Minun, and he'll be used to take out Skarmory and Pelipper. His modest nature actually comes in huge here, as Thunderbolt should actually be a one-hit KO on Skarmory. Having Charm here is nice as well if I need it for Skarmory for whatever reason, but it just seems unlikely. Sableye and Seviper are the backups, but to be honest, neither can really be super helpful for the majority of this fight. Seviper in particular just doesn't match up well against anything other than Tropius, which I don't think I'll ever need a backup for. Sableye can at least Toxic Stall something if it's absolutely needed. Let's see what Winona has in store for us this time. I lead with Castform and go for the Ice Beam. And it doesn't kill. It actually didn't even come close, which surprised me. But I think I also just got it in my head that Swablu was part dragon, just like its evolution, but no, that's not the case, so Ice Beam is only 2 times effective. Luckily, the aerial ace that came out wasn't too much of an issue, but that could have been a big problem if Perish Song had come out instead. Winona decides to send in Tropius next, and surely Ice Beam will one-shot this time, right? Well, no, apparently it doesn't. Tropius is a pretty bulky Pokemon, but still, a quad-effective Ice Beam from pretty much any Pokemon that's 4 levels higher should take this thing down. But I guess we may have gotten to the point in the run where Castform's shortcomings come into focus a bit more. Tropius ended up going for the Solar Beam though, which means it locks itself out from any healing that Winona could have provided, so another Ice Beam brings him down. Pelipper comes out next, and I switch into Minun. Pelipper's entire strategy revolves around using Supersonic to set up confusion, and then Protect to basically be as annoying as humanly possible without actually dealing a whole lot of damage. However, this damage that I could take from Confusion may actually matter though. Not for this fight against Pelipper, he's straight up doomed. But if I do take a little bit of damage from Confusion, when Altaria eventually comes in, it might see a kill with Earthquake and go for that instead of Dragon Dance. Switching into either Castform or Kecleon on an Earthquake instead of a Dragon Dance would not be ideal. With all of that being said though, Minun completely shrugs off Pelipper's entire strategy and doesn't get hit a single time, despite the double Protect as well. All I need was one Thunderbolt to connect, and once it did, Pelipper finally went down. Winona's ace finally comes out and I switch into Kecleon. Altaria goes for the Dragon Dance as expected, and then follows that up with an Earthquake. Time to see if this Ice Beam can kill in one hit. According to my calculations, it looks like a range. It doesn't quite get there, and Altaria's Oranberry pops. Quick side note on that, by the way, why does Winona's ace use an Oranberry while most of the others use a Citrus Berry? I guess Game Freak thought that Winona was pretty tough too, I guess. After the Hyper Potion from Winona, I use another Ice Beam, and this time I hit the range and Altaria goes down. All that's left is the Skarmory, and so I switch into Minun to take the incoming Steel Wing. One more Thunderbolt later, and Winona falls, giving us our 6th gym badge and the TM for Aerial Ace. An all-around great performance from the team. With our newest gym badge in hand, we've got quite a lot of exploring to do between now and our next boss fight. I head back to the Pokemon Center to heal up the team and say goodbye to 2 of our team members. for now at least. Solrock and Seviper are the least needed for the immediate challenges ahead of us, and I also wanted to play around with some other Pokemon. To replace them, Tropius will be joining the squad as our flyer, as well as our next encounter. Heading out of Ford Tree to the east is Route 120, where we can catch ourselves an Absol. Absol is a lot of things, honestly. Perhaps the edgiest Pokemon in the series, with a Pokedex entry that refers to it as the Disaster Pokemon, which is really cool and interesting, but has it ever been explained why you can find one on Route 120? Like, is there a particular significance to this route that I'm just not aware of? Pokemon with that kind of title deserves a little bit more backstory in my opinion. And I mean, look at him. Absol looks like it could have been a part of a legendary trio or something. While that's all fun to think about, what does Absol bring to the table for our run? Well, as many of you know already, the absence of the physical special split doesn't do us any favors here. But while Absol's overall move pool is incredibly limited, you can scrummage up enough to make good use out of Absol's huge attack stat. Slash, Shadow Ball, and Aerial Ace are all pretty decent options. I haven't decided what I want to do for that fourth move slot yet though. The obvious choice would be Swords Dance, of course, but I'd like to avoid using it if I can. The only real setup strategy that I completely ban from my runs involves the use of any move that raises your Pokemon's evasion, like Double Team or Minimize. I think I'd like to officially throw Swords Dance into that mix as well, unless the challenge I'm currently doing is so difficult that it would be impossible to complete without it. And that goes for the evasion strategies as well. I don't mind using those things as long as they're totally necessary, or if I had to risk too many crits for comfort. In general, I'd like to continue to allow all other setup moves though in my runs, but perhaps I'll only restrict myself to using them on a single team member. That way, I can still use the strategy if I want to, but without making every single run I go through just like a setup fest. Even without Swords Dance, I believe that with proper training and usage, Absol will still be able to dish out some serious hell on our future opponents. And with that, this episode is now over. We got a lot done in this episode. Tropius and Absol have been welcomed to the team, and we are able to pull off one hell of a clean Winona fight. In the next episode, we take on the Big Slog, as I like to call it, with new routes, new encounters, and new battles. In the meantime, as usual, please like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more content like this. Let me know how you guys are enjoying the series so far. That's it for me. I'll see you next time.